Welcome to another Shinobi collection video, and for this video, let's talk about the PvP that just finished. We just had the very first PvP for 2, and in that PvP, finally we were able to use the brand new Kizunas that came out, and that is Kizuna Madara and Kizuna Naruto and Sasuke V2. So with that, it was a very easy PvP, just because there's no ranking and all you had to do was get to 500k and then 100 wins, and that would have gotten you a lot of gems. Let me see if we can actually look here, see if we can look at how many gems it gave. I only did 500k because there's really no point of going above 500k unless you're making like showcase videos. And for this one, I already recorded my showcase for new Kizunas, both of them, and GK Madara, which should be coming up whenever I get the time to edit them actually. And with that, these are just the gears. So pretty much you got a bunch of gems, probably 50 plus, maybe even 80. I wasn't really counting how many I got in total, but it was a lot. I just want to look at one thing before we actually talk about PvP, because I remember seeing a lot of gears from it, and I know most of them are PvP gears, but there's one gear that I was actually curious about that I never actually checked. So let's actually look at that, and it was I believe a Hashirama gear. I'm not sure if it's just a brand new gear in general, or it's a what is color? Is it yellow? Yellow. I don't know if it's a brand new gear or just something that just came out randomly. Might have to check the database back to it, but it was this gear. I think this is possibly V5 Madara, V5 Hashirama. I want to actually check this out, because if it's not actually V5 Madara's gear, then that's actually very interesting, because that might mean that we are missing, they just gave us a free random gear. I'm here in my database, can't really see it right now because I'm only showing off my in-game. I'll be farming later on as we talk, so there's more to do. So, okay, I'm just looking at Hashirama. I believe this is actually his PvP, is a V5 Hashirama, which is weird that they actually gave it in that form. So they just gave you a random free gear that's pretty good because it's skill damage plus 300%, cast speed plus 2. The cast speed plus 2 is pretty much what you want. So, okay, now let's talk about PvP. Now that I actually had a correction of what that gear was. So let's go over the top most used characters, because the top most used character is very interesting. So the number one most used character is Kizuna Naruto. And the reason why is most likely because people have more chances to pull for them. I believe he's been out for a good while now. I have the DB up, actually, I can look it up. He's been out for about 3 months now. He came out during Naruto's birthday. This was the birthday Naruto that was got. And with him, he's kind of probably one of the worst Kizunas that's in the meta. Just because of how his damage is not on par with the others. And the support he gives is nice, but it's not good enough. And it's kind of funny that he's the most used, probably because a lot of people have him, and not a lot of people either got the new Kizunas or just don't want to try anything new, because a lot of them will most likely have dupes for this guy if they keep pulling. I guess that's why he's the most used, but overall, so this PvP was consisting of pretty much 3 Kizunas per team, which is insane. So there's 3 Kizunas, 1 Enbu, and probably a 90 cost that's either max LP or whatever. And I thought that was very interesting because I thought that we were just only going to be seeing 2 Kizunas, but it's understandable why people don't have the brand new Kizuna 0 cost. You can see here, they're 3 and 4 in most use, and what I said with Naruto, that's probably the same exact reason why they're 3 and 4. They've only been out for 1 banner. Madara and Obito has only been out on their banner, and then Naruto and Sasuke have been out just now. Like Kizuna, Kakashi, and Obito, you have a lot of chances to pull for them because they came out 4 months ago during Kakashi's birthday. So since I talked about Naruto, let me talk about Kizuna, Kakashi, and Obito and how well they did in this PvP. Pretty much what they did in this PvP are most people will have them zero cost because they were OP at the release, so they were not afraid to zero cost them. So at the end of the day, people use these two just because they're zero cost, not usually using them for their effect. And a lot of people are starting with Obito, which is understandable because of Madara and Obito. So that, so in my opinion, how good are these characters now? So as what I said in my tier list before, that some of the most important characters in the game are this guy, and then the brand new Madara and Obito, and somewhat the Kizuna Naruto. And the usefulness of Kizuna, Kakashi, and Obito actually dropped just because of how strong Madara and Obito are. The reason why they use him is because they're zero cost. If you have someone else's zero cost, for example, if you have one of the brand new Kizuna's zero cost, wouldn't be using this character. You most likely would be using an LP character, something like GK Madara, which if you have GK Madara, please use him. He's a really strong character. But yeah, so most people will be starting with Obito just because of that debuff right over here. I think you can see my mouse right here. So yeah, this debuff right here, which is a cast speed -2 and -5, and then disables positive special and God state. So that's the reason why you're only starting at Obito. Most people don't even start with Kakashi anymore, just because you don't need this state at all. This state does the exact same thing as Kizuna Madara, so there's really no reason to start with Kakashi. And also, Seal doesn't really matter anymore. I haven't gotten sealed, I don't think, once in this PvP, just because their skill doesn't trigger, just because of how strong Kizuna Madara and Obito are. With that, yes, them. So it's kind of funny how Obito is probably the better of these two halves now, just because he's an Uchiha and you don't need their buff up. And the way PvP is going on right now, which I will probably show when I start farming, is kind of very interesting. So the third character that's most used is the brand new Kizuna, Naruto, and Sasuke. And I don't remember if I said this in my review of these characters when they first came out, but after this PvP, I can 100% say for certain that these two are a little bit worse than Madara and Obito, but just slightly. So the way PvP was going on, at least the way I was running it, is that I would start with Sasuke, just because Sasuke can actually one-shot Kizuna Madara, just one-shot him. And the way that PvP is working is people are actually starting with Obito. So that's kind of triggering, because if you start with Obito as an enemy and you hit them with Sasuke, if you don't one-shot them with Sasuke, they will instantly switch to Madara, which then would inflict the pale violence to all of your allies. So that was pretty much what everyone was dealing with this PvP, and that was a very fun experience just because attacking became RNG. It wasn't fun. I was just kidding with it. So this Sasuke can actually one-shot Obito if everything was right. So the way that works is it's rough because damage-wise, everything needs to go to plan. The enemy can't have any boards. If the enemy has any slight, I think if the enemy has the Kizuna board, just the free Kizuna board, you can't one-shot them. But Sasuke is your best option to actually one-shot them before getting hit by tail violence. And in my showcase that I'm gonna be posting whenever I get the time to actually edit them, you can actually see these two one-shotting fight. So beating, not even these two, just Sasuke, just beating the fight pretty much turn 1, which is really nice to see. Because most fights, I think, is gonna be around 20 turns average on a good day. So you have fights that ends in 4 turns, and those fights pretty much are the ones that doesn't have Kizuna Madara. But if you see a Kizuna Madara, your fights get extended to about 20 turns, and even 50 if Kizuna Madara gets his Kizuna skill off. That's why Kizuna Madara is a pain to fight, and the best way to counter him is either Sasuke or bring your own Kizuna Madara. So that's Sasuke. Sasuke can one-shot Kizuna Madara and Obito if everything goes to plan. But if you can't one-shot, this is what you do with Sasuke. As soon as the fight starts, you look at the enemy. If there's at least one enemy that's paralyzed, you S1 with Sasuke. If no one is paralyzed and there's no Madara on the enemy team, you want to switch to Naruto. But if there's no one paralyzed and there's a Madara on the other team, then you want to keep with Sasuke. And I'm going to go over that a bit when I go over how Madara did in this PvP. So then, most of the time, you're not staying as Sasuke, you'll be switching to Naruto. So this was probably one of the first Kizunas where both parties of the Kizunas are actually really broken. Usually when I rank Kizunas, I would rank them separate. And pretty much every Kizuna to this point, there's one Kizuna that stands out. And then the other one is pretty much never used. Like if you look at Naruto and Minato, you'll be Naruto 99% of the time. At least during his prime. Now I start with Minato because Minato is just better than Naruto at this point. And then I think if you look at Kizuna, Itachi, and Sasuke, which is probably, I want to say, the very first Kizuna that broke the game, you want to stay with Itachi 99% of the time. I think after that, everything else is pretty much towards one character. Like Naruto and Hinata, you want to be Hinata. Sasuke, Sakura, you want to be Sakura. Kakashi, Obito, you want to be Kakashi. Naruto, you want to be Kid Naruto. For these characters, it doesn't matter, you want to be both. So you want to start as Sasuke, the one-shot enemy, and as soon as Sasuke finishes his job, you're instantly switching to Naruto, unless Madara is in an enemy team. And then, placing a Madara just changes 100% your game plan. And putting it on auto actually can hurt you, because you don't want to switch preemptively. So with Naruto, he just does a lot of damage because he is one of those brand new type of damage dealer that started with Kizuna Kid Naruto of multicasting their skills. So Naruto is just gonna multicast his S1, which has 5 penetration additional attacks. Because I've noticed in this PvP, there's some characters that are just immune to damage, and those penetration additional attacks were lifesavers. And I was running 2 of them in my team. I had Naruto and GK Madara. I was always consistently doing damage, and there was just not one turn wasted of 0 damage because people are immune. So that was really strong. The lacerate state, you never really feel that. The skip, you feel a lot, especially for those who doesn't have their boards up, who doesn't give their characters skip immunity. Skip immunity is a must in this meta because everyone skips. We just got a Madara ramen gear that skips. So please everyone, when you level up your unit's potential, 100% get skip. Don't skip immunity. Don't worry about cancel chakra cost or any of that nonsense. You want skip immunity. That is gonna be your life savior. You don't even need to worry about type advantage because he has penetration damage. You don't care about type advantage. So you can save your materials by skipping those overall, but 100% get skip immunity or else you're just gonna get skipped by everyone. So that's them. Very strong. In my opinion, second best character in the game. Because the best character in the game are these guys. Kizuna, Madara, and Obito. Just what I expected. The amount of toxicity to fight these guys are insane. Just because of Pale Violence. Pale Violence, I said before, is the best unique state in the game. And it's not even close on who was the second best is. He probably have the second best unique state in the game too. And the third, depending on how often you get your Kizuna skills up. So the thing with this is, there's really no point of talking about Madara first because we got 99% of the time you're starting with Obito. So with Obito, he already gives everyone the end of reality unique state, which is the positive state buff that is the reason why Kizuna Kakashi is hurting bad. So this buff pretty much grants instant action to Uchihas or non-allies. You don't really care how many Uchihas you bring, but the fact that Sasuke is on Uchiha, GK Madara is on Uchiha, these guys are Uchihas. Every Uchiha is just gonna get instant action. And the thing with this is, you give this unique state to everyone on your team. So for example, if your Enbu does not on Uchiha acts, all of your Uchiha acts. So this is pretty much what like this kind of effect. Back then, around I wanna say Origin Kakashi, there was a way where you run Origin Kakashi, or actually V4 Kakashi, because Origin Kakashi had the state, but V4 Kakashi, which is the single target one, and made the state better. Because you run V4 Kakashi, I believe it's V10 Naruto. There's so many Narutos, but it's the Naruto that gives instant action to gods. So you would run those two, and you would have something of what I like to call infinite turns, where you just keep giving everyone instant action, you never actually touch the action bar. These characters do that. So if an Uchiha acts, so if someone acts, it makes an Uchiha acts. If an Uchiha acts, it makes everyone acts. That's an Uchiha, so it's just gonna keep going on and on. Plus, they have their speed plus 1000%. Cast speed is set to flash. That is actually really important in this meta, because I'll go over when we go over some of the other characters that was really OP in this meta. Damage limit plus 700%. That's pretty much what you want. And this is one thing that Shinobi Collection, I want to say, not even the word shafted from, but purposely did this just because of how broken it would have been. So they're immune to debuff and status effect. The difference between immune and disable is pretty big, because Kizuna, Naruto, and Sasuke, when the battle starts with them, you ignore resistance and you inflict paralysis to all enemies. Immunity doesn't protect you from a status effect that ignores resistance. You need something that disables it. So these characters actually don't protect you from that paralysis, and I believe there's no characters that does that on instant state that protects you from status effect. You need someone to actually cleanse that. So that's one reason. That's one way for them to actually be really strong. But the thing is, you start with the state, so you get your turn, it goes down because you're paralyzed, and then you get an instant action again. So at the end of the day, that paralysis only reduces the duration of this state, which is actually very important because damage limit is not permanent in this meta. Most of the time you will be doing normal damage now, so that's actually really funny. I don't know if I want to say funny in a good way, because I like damage limit, but so yeah, that's immunity. And then the other one is illusion, negative special, and god state disable. That's actually very strong because there's a lot of illusion preemptive in this game right now, so you're just getting protected by that. But the reason why you start with Obito, one simple reason. You do that because if you switch to Madara, just like that, with a click of a button, you inflict everyone with pale violence. But the thing is, people gotta know, you don't want to do that turn 1. If you switch to Madara turn 1, you're extending your runs. Especially, well, against Madara. You don't do that if you're fighting against Madara. What you want to do is, you attack with Sasuke. If Obito survives and he stays at Obito, you attack. But if as soon as the Kizuna Obito switch to Madara, you switch all your Kizunas. What that would do is that you're not gonna be inflicted with pale violence because your other side got inflicted by that, so you switch, so you cleanse that off. That will let you attack. And the good thing about that is that most of the time, if your damage is high enough, or if the enemy's HP is not high enough, your Kizuna Sasuke in one hit will guarantee Obito and Madara to switch. And if that's not enough, usually Kizuna Obito attack second, because I have them. The way I have it set up is I have Sasuke is a 5th, which means first priority, and then Obito. So with that, I would attack with Sasuke. If that doesn't switch, Obito pretty much guarantees them to switch to Madara. And then as soon as they switch to Madara, I go switch to my own Madara, which means all the enemies will be inflicted with pale violence, because the way switching works for an AI is they switch depending on how much damage they take. So if they take enough damage, which is usually enough to charge their Kizuna skill, which is terrifying, that's why as soon as they switch, sometimes, in my opinion, if you want to actually perfectly time it, as soon as you hit your second attack, that will most likely make it switch, you want to turn off 2 times speed, just so you have enough time to switch your Obitos, all your Kizunas, and that will inflict the enemies with pale violet. And just because the thing is 1 time speed, they don't instantly cast their Kizuna skill and wipe you. So you actually have time. So that's actually a tactic that you can do. Just go to 1 time speed and then just let it just let it switch. So then now you switch to Madara. Everyone's afflicted with pale violence. That's why this state is really broken because no one can act. Now damage becomes RNG. Because I believe this says high chance. Yeah, high chance to disable skills. And that's really stupid. There's 70% chance I believe that you just don't do anything. You just basic attack. So this is why damage limit is expiring. Because you need, on average, you need 10 turns to switch back. So with Kizuna and Madara, if the enemy's in Madara form, they can't buff. Because you need to be Obito to buff. But if they're in Obito, they can't attack because they're pale violence, and most likely you'll kill the Obito before they get to put their end of reality unique state up. So that's why this state is really stupid. And the fun part about this state is you're gonna be running Kizuna Sasuke, and if you're fighting someone that doesn't have Kizuna Madara, that's the difference between fighting one. If they don't have a Kizuna Madara, you can instantly switch to Madara with no problem, just because you don't have to worry about pale violence. So when you instantly switch to Madara, they're gonna get inflicted by pale violence. They will most likely take a turn, because the way switching works is your fifth character has first priority. If you switch with one character, that priority switch to someone else. And sometimes the enemy gets priority, but if the enemy is paralyzed, they're just gonna take 35% HP. And if they take 35% HP, that makes it easier for Sasuke to one-shot them. So that's why those two are really strong together. Especially if you're not fighting against a Kizuna Madara. But if you're fighting against a Kizuna Madara, it's too risky. Switch to Madara before the enemy switch first. Just because you don't want that to happen. Unless they're starting with Kizuna Madara, then yeah, you can probably do that. Because you don't have to worry about getting inflicted by pale violence when they switch to Obito. But most people start with Obito anyway, that's why the tactics don't work. And his S2 doesn't really matter. His S2 doesn't do anything much. All it does is give speed buff. I don't think I've ever casted this once, so nothing really go over it, and that's how strong he is. And the other characters I want to talk about actually are just a quick one. Pain. Most people are running like LP5 Pain, just because he's probably one of the strongest GK in the game. The best, I think GK Madara is better than Pain. So I'm seeing GK Madara followed by Pain. There's nothing wrong with Pain. He's just a little outdated because his cast speed reduction, that doesn't really do much unless, you know, the Madara state expires. But most of the time, by the time that expires, Pain is dead. So that's that. I'm seeing these characters a lot. Probably, I don't know why. Maybe because they have them zero cost. I think I have one dupe of them. If I had them zero cost, I'd probably use Naruto. Just because it seems like he do enough damage. He deals more damage than everyone else. So I'd probably use Naruto. V11, there's really no reason to use him anymore. Konoha teams don't exist. The best teams you could do now are a mix of Konoha and none. So I don't know why he's up there. These guys are really strong just because of their HP reduction. So you combine these two with Kizuna Madara and you're pretty much just one-shotting them every single time with Sasuke because of the HP. But so Amaterasu's state is really good. Their formation is still strong, so they're still really strong. I use these guys, so these are my best zero cost Kizuna. I use Minato because if I inflict them with a skill damage reduction, I can't take damage, so I just use him for that. Probably same thing. Number 11, please stop using her. She's garbage. GK Madara should be higher. I don't know why people don't use him. He does penetration damage. He deals really good damage. A lot of time, my run ends because of how much DPS that I got, and he's one of the reasons why. And then these guys, Sasuke is kind of bad in this meta. He doesn't do enough damage. So there's really no point of using him. Probably same reason as all the other Kizunas, just zero cost fodder. I guess for Konoha teams, people are still using you. They're using them basically for their formation, and for some case you don't fight like a state removal. You get a couple extra hits. I guess you can do that in the beginning if you have priority with them. You can actually do damage. I've seen them do triple hits, and that could do a lot of damage. in some good fight. They're probably, I want to say, this the second best Enbu in the game. Their formation just does a lot of work. Just because if you're fighting a GK Pain, they can destroy that terrain. So that's pretty much why I like. I'm using them, so really strong. Probably just people who don't have, they're running Konoha that doesn't have the best Madara. And these guys, there's no reason to run them. They're really bad. They're single target and stuff. And then Madara, kind of garbage in this meta in my opinion. Illusion just doesn't work. And then he only does 4 additional attacks. That's not enough. Inflex paralysis, but there's no point. I think I have him LP4 and it's just not even worth it to run. GK Madara at LP0 is just better. And yeah, that's the top most use, and that's how this PvP is. I don't know what I'm gonna title this video. Probably, oh yeah, Rambo. I'm gonna talk about Rambo. Rambos are garbage. All they do is extend your run if you run him on auto. In my opinion, the only Rambo that's worth running is probably her, but at the same time you don't need it because damage limit is there, and most of the time no one's gonna be acting. So there's really no reason to run out Rambos in this game anymore. Their animation, especially if you're autoing, just takes too long. Especially if you have more than one. If you have 4 Rambos and you're doing auto, you're doing something wrong. There's just no point of running them ever. They just extend runs for no reason. And yeah, so that was the PvP. I thought I was gonna do some gameplays while we're talking about it, but I guess that's fine looking at the characters too, so you know which ones I'm talking about. So yeah, that's the first PvP of 2022. Kizuna Madara is the best character in the game, and it's kind of, I don't know how PvP is without using them. I imagine it's very rough. And also there's some characters I also want to talk about that wasn't in the top 20 before we actually end this video, just because I think it's very important. There's some characters in this game that my opinion, just don't bother using. I think one of them is Hashirama. There's nothing about him that just works. So his state, there's no point of running him. If the character is a state user, like these guys are, he's garbage. Most of these characters that are gods in, well, it's mostly gods actually. Most gods in the game, in my opinion, are unplayable. I don't think there's a single god in this game that you should be using. There's just no point of running a god. The best you can probably do is Izuna on a 3v3. But other than that, there's no reason. And also, as we're talking about gods, there's one interaction that I found really funny. So we need, I think, she's Black Konoha. Now this interaction is one thing that can save gods. So this is God Hinata. And the thing with God Hinata is her S1, which is God Chakra Point, and you get inflicted by this by attacking her too. There's one line in here that says this state cannot be removed. So what I've noticed is this is the hierarchy of states, of inflicting states. If you don't have immunity, you don't have disabled, any states will hit you. If you have immunity, states will hit you only if they ignore resistance. If you have disable, nothing can hit you. So that's how the hierarchy is right now. Is those 3 steps. But now I feel like, as I was playing, literally on my 100th match, I fought the first Hinata, the PvP, and that made me realize there's a 4th step. If you have a state that says this cannot be removed, that bypasses disabled states. And the reason why I'm saying that's very important is the way units are made now. You have Madara. That was random. Alright, my microphone died. My headset randomly turned off. Alright, that's what I was saying. You have Madara, who disables positive special in God state. A lot of characters disabled positive special in God state. The reason why that's important is because most things don't say this state can't be removed. There's only 2 God states in the game that says that. So Hinata, her God Chakra Point, this debuff, this negative God state can't be removed. So this will bypass Omni Protection. So that's one of them. The other character that says that is character that sadly was shafted is God Guy. God Guy's state is this positive special state can't be removed. Reason why that's very important is so we have two types. We have a positive and we have a negative. So if the only way that this game can save gods are by giving them these effects. I've noticed that they like to give gods god state. They don't want to give them unique state. The only god that I know that has a unique state is Obito. And he's single target, so he's garbage. Hashirama's not in the top 20, but Hashirama 100% is a god state user. There's one thing I want to check. Minato, I believe, is a god state user as well. So that's the only way they can save god state, is by saying that this state can't be removed. And with that, the next character should be released very soon actually. So this PvP is done, and the best way, actually, if you guys want to wonder, the best way to figure out the release scheduled for Shinobi Collection is by looking up just birthdays for Naruto characters. So if we look up here, I'm looking up all the birthdays for Naruto characters, and sadly, Guy's birthday is on the 1st, and New Year isn't a very important holiday for Japan. So Guy will most likely, well, he doesn't. I don't think he ever got it. Well, I think maybe he got it once. Usually, we'll never get a birthday character just because of that. Just because it's New Year. There's more hype characters to release on New Year, and for New Year we got Naruto and Sasuke Kizuna. After him, Haku's birthday is on the 9th. Most likely, there's nothing gonna happen there. Gaara's birthday is on the 19th, so there's a chance we're probably gonna get an Enbu Gaara, Gaara and Temari most likely. Or if it's not that, we might get a GKV2 Gaara. The thing with GKV2 Gaara is we got a GK last year for Gaara, which is a kid Gaara. It might also be a god Gaara. Like Gaara could be anywhere. I don't think it's gonna be a Kizuna. I don't think they're gonna release 3 Kizunas in a row. But it might be an Enbu with Temari. That's my guess. Then after that, on the 25th, it's Minato. So 100% Minato will be getting one. And for this one, it's probably gonna be another god Minato. So yeah, and then after that, next month, there's really nothing next month except for Obito, which is gonna be a guaranteed unit. So the thing with that is, we might get 2 Obitos that month, or not. And yeah, that's with that. That's the 2022's first PvP. Tell me in the comment section what you guys think about that PvP. I found that PvP very fun. People probably didn't, especially if you don't have any of the top units in the game. I can see it very toxic. With that, I'll see you on the next video. Bye.